You're the host. You're the host. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, good.
All right. Designate as a host. All right.
Yeah,
So
that's
I will continue.
Okay.
So I was discussing that you had asked me to give a brief Republic of New Africa. Mentioned that we use the term New Africa because we use that our continent and our ancestor invaded, right? Was a military invasion in warfare. And at that time, we were many different nations on the African continent and many different states. A nation is a group of people who live in a specific environment and have a specific shared history or heritage. And a state is the administrative organization of those people, of nation. So on June 18th, 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued an apostolic edict called the Dum Diversis. It's a declaration of war that authorized the King of Portugal to invade all our nations and wage war against our states, and that roughly 12 million of our ancestors were captured as prisoners of war and trafficked across the Atlantic and enslaved in the Americas. And over the next 8 generations, these people coming from different African nations and different African states were mixed together. We lived together. We bore children together. We share the history together. We occupied territory that we now call the National Territory of the Republic of New Africa. And in the process, these prisoners of war suffered what's called chattel enslavement and ethnocide. But at the same time, we underwent a process, the ethnogenesis, meaning that our intermixture created new genetic combinations. And our experiences, what we call our heritage, created a new nation of people, a new nation of various African people. So the founders of the Republic of New Africa, aware of this, realized that the proper way to refer to ourselves as we are African people, we are a new African people as a result of the process of ethnogenesis. And so that's why we use the term New African.
Did you why did you use Africa with K? Did you hear my question?
Comrade Imani, I'm hearing you. No,
Yes.
can you repeat it?
Yeah, I say, why do you use Africa with K now with C?
Reason for that, for me personally, right, it is government convention, as far as I know. Uh, I don't think that's necessarily the real most important, interesting question, but I couldn't tell you why the original founders, why we do that. So, next question.
Yeah, so
yeah,
and
brothers.
uh-huh.
The answer to that question is that in the African languages, there was no C. And because there was no C, but K, then we used the K. This is Mama Ifia on God speaking.
Sawa. Now, and then,
Thank you, Mama.
and, and speaking in reference to that, the history also depicts two different aspects Christianity, the story I was sharing with Imani, the narrative of the essay that I did at the university, Coppin State University, 2,000 years of Christianity in Africa, how missionaries came through in this doctrine of converting as counted the heathens to their superior ethics and mores as a Caucasian race, which we know was fallacy altogether. Um, and reading this out of the book that I've received from Imani was very the heart of living the genuine me also because I am the Bishop William Hawthorne of the Hebrew Apostolic Society, which seeks to, record and document as best I can the pure and uncompromised history and truth of the language, and what it means as being Hebrew. And so when I look at this connection, it's reminding me that what you are sharing with us reflects a little bit about the Hebrew people. And I always tell my brothers and sisters in Kenya, you are true Hebrew people, because the migration of the Israelites entered in and migrated in through not just Ethiopia, but through Kenya, and many of them are stationed there as band people. So my question is, do you see that similarity, or do you find that the transatlantic slave movement constitutes the true history of the prophetic aspect of Yahweh as it was pronounced upon the people?
If that question is directed to me,
Yes.
yeah, that question, that's not really what we're here to talk about today. And I don't want to muddle up the history of the Republic of New Africa with religious and theological questions. It's a little bit off topic. So if you would grant me that, that could take us way off on a tangent. I know a lot about our ancient history. It predates the dynasty in Kemet, which was 1,800 years before the Shashu came into Kemet, which eventually was composed of what are called the Habiru people, which eventually became Hebrew, and that whole history. That's what we want to get into today. So I respectfully decline to really answer that question.
Actually, you just did answer it.
To the topic.
Okay, good. So I think
Imani?
we can, yes, we can go to next question. That one, it seemed like, yeah. So now my other question is, I'm just gonna stick with Republic of New Africa, of course. So Republic of New Africa was created in 1960s in that area, according to what you said and what I was able to found. And UNIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association, was created back in 1920s or something. And why did you guys decide to create something? Do you have a lot of difference between what the UNIA were fighting for and what you guys are fighting for?
Okay, thank you for that question. Let me clear it up. So, first of all, I like to refer to the pre-government stage of New African history and then post-government stage. As by 1526, our people were in what would eventually become the United States. We had a whole history of resisting oppression and state building, going as far back as 1526 in what were considered to be the Spanish possessions in Florida. And then throughout the history, we had great new African generals that as prisoners of war continued to wage war. Excuse me 1 second. Start a little bit of a condition here in my office. So remember, it's important to understand we were brought here as a result of a war and as prisoners of war. And once we arrived in what would become the States, right? We never ceased to in South Carolina. We had Anderson and others have been attacks and battles in this warfare. It continues up to this day. So by the time you get to movement, actually the movement that took place in the United States, all of that is part of New African history. It's not separate. Those were various phases in New African history. Many of the Garveyites, like Malcolm X's father, who was in for Marcus Garvey and the UNIA for their petition to the League of Nations. A lot of people don't realize that that was the reason why he was murdered and put on those railroad tracks. We had Garveyites like Queen Mother Audley Moore, who were the real ideological leaders in helping us to understand our identity as prisoners of war, our right to self-determination, our right to reparations. The fact that we constituted a nation with a national homeland, right, and our national territory. So it was Garveyites that played a key role in the early formation of what would eventually become not the
a little bit.
We're separate, they're developments of the same. Let me turn off the video. All right, I've turned off my video. Hopefully this will help.
Yes, that's better.
Yeah. Oh,
We are listening to you.
so my overall point in the America is of a again the of a declared war and a military invasion, and that we were trapped under the war, and we've been fighting this war ever since. The Garvey and the UNIA movement was a phase in that warfare. And out of that movement, many of the Garveyites attended that Black National Government Conference that was at the end of March in 1968, which then declared the independence of the Republic of New Africa. So hopefully that answered your question about the Garveyite movement.
Absolutely, yes, you're right, and I think pretty much I will put that war happened back on Garvey